It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where the air is thick and the road stretches out like a ribbon of tar. I was heading home after a long day, minding my own business, doing the speed limit, and not a care in the world until the blue lights flashed in my rearview mirror. I pulled over, hands at 10 and 2, ready for the usual dance of license and registration. But as the officer approached, his gait changed. It shifted from a routine patrol stride to a measured, cautious tread. He didn't ask for my license first. He looked at the window tint, then at me. And the first words out of his mouth weren't, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Instead, he looked directly at my waistband, the telltale bulge that a jacket couldn't quite hide, and asked, "Sir, are you carrying a weapon tonight?" Right there, in that suspended moment between the hum of the engine and the crackle of his radio, I knew this stop was going to be different. And it made me think about all of you watching, listening, or reading this right now. Have you ever been in this exact spot? Have you had to explain your firearm to law enforcement during a traffic stop? If so, what happened? Did it go smoothly, or did it get complicated in a way you didn't expect? I ask because I genuinely want to know. Share your experience in the comments. Tell me about the moment an officer noticed your firearm, or the moment you had to decide whether to disclose it. I'll be circling back to a few specific answers later because there is a particular scenario I've witnessed far too many times where armed citizens accidentally hand over rights they never realized they possessed. It's a subtle thing, but once it's gone, it's gone. The gun question, the shift in the air. Going back to that stop. The officer's hand wasn't on his holster, but it was close. I've been in enough classes and seen enough body cam footage to know that the first few seconds are the most critical. He didn't ask if I had a firearm because he saw it. He asked because he saw something else, a micro-expression, a flinch, or maybe just the shape of the holster under the cloth. It's a psychological test as much as a legal one. In states that aren't duty to inform, you have a choice. Silence is legal, but in my experience, silence is often a tactical disadvantage. There is a saying in the law enforcement community: if you have to ask the question, you're already behind the curve. I decided to answer. I said, "Yes, officer, I have a concealed carry permit and it's on my right hip." The moment I acknowledged it, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't a win. It was a temporary ceasefire. The officer's body relaxed a fraction of an inch. He wasn't dealing with an unknown variable anymore. He was dealing with a known quantity. This is the first lesson of the day. Real police encounters involving firearms are rarely about the law. They are about fear. Officers aren't thinking about your Second Amendment rights when they see a weapon. They are thinking about their own survival. The nervous fumble, the speed of sound. Now, let's talk about how this goes wrong. Most gun owners are civilians. They're not tactical operators. When the adrenaline hits, fine motor skills vanish. I've seen videos where an officer asks for the permit and the driver dives into the glove compartment without warning. The officer's hand goes straight for the sidearm because the driver didn't announce the action. This is the "I was just trying to get my registration" mistake. It doesn't matter if the gun is locked away. The sudden movement toward a dark compartment is a threat indicator. If the gun is in the glove box and the officer asks you to open it, you tell them, "Officer, my firearm is in the glove compartment. I am reaching to open it, but I want you to know it's there." This forces the officer to make a choice. Usually, they will tell you to stop and ask you to step out so they can retrieve it safely. The temporary seizure, the confidence game. There's a moment in many stops where the officer requests to hold your firearm for safety. I've had this happen. The officer asked, "Would you mind if I secure that for the duration of the stop?" Now here's the nuance. In a traffic stop, the officer is legally allowed to disarm you temporarily for their safety. However, the key word here is temporarily. It is a seizure, but it is limited in scope. The officer might ask you to step out, unload the firearm if it's in a holster, and place it on the roof or the hood. If you get nervous, you might drop the magazine or fumble. This is where the nervous gun owner becomes the suspicious gun owner. If you are unsure how to clear your firearm with one hand because the other is being watched, you will look like you don't know what you're doing, which raises the officer's suspicion. In one encounter, I saw a driver hand over a loaded firearm with his finger on the trigger. The officer nearly jumped out of his skin. You never, ever hand a loaded weapon to anyone in a high-stress environment. State law, borderlines, and interstate travel. Where you are matters. If you are driving from a constitutional carry state into a duty-to-inform state, you are entering a legal minefield. Many gun owners think their permit is a golden ticket. It isn't. In some jurisdictions, the officer must be notified immediately before they even ask. Even the question, "Do you have any weapons?" is a trap. Some states define weapons differently. Does a pocket knife count? Does pepper spray count? If you lie and say no, but your wife has a pocket knife in her purse, you could be facing obstruction charges. The legal trap. Do you mind if I look? This leads to the biggest mistake I see, consent searches. An officer will ask, "Do you mind if I run the serial number on that just to make sure it's clean?" They phrase it like a favor or a routine check. If you have committed no crime and the firearm is not in plain view, you have the right to say no. But most people, in their eagerness to be cooperative, say, "Go ahead." This is the handoff of rights I mentioned earlier. If the officer finds nothing, you're fine. But if the serial number is flagged due to an error, or if the computer system is down, now you are stuck on the side of the road for an hour while they verify. The aftermath, silence, and strategy. The real-world scenario usually ends with a warning or a ticket. But the tension of knowing that a single movement, a single word, can escalate the situation is something that stays with you. The Supreme Court ruling I hinted at earlier? It's supposed to change the landscape of how these stops are handled, but the human element, the sweaty palms, the heavy breathing, the eyes of the officer, that never changes. We are in an era where the law is getting more complex, not less. The gun laws are a tangled web, but on the side of the road, it's just you, the officer, and the decision of how to handle the tension of a life-or-death moment in a situation that is supposed to be routine. Keep your hands visible, keep your words short, and remember that the officer's fear is just as real as yours.